Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Roll Call. Today featuring Gemma, or Twig, from
Yay.
the Isles of Iverion, depending on how you look at it. So Gemma, as always, thanks for coming on. Been looking forward to this episode for a hot minute for Twig, so sorry it took so long. Holidays and all that.
No man. Had
Uh,
to ruminate.
Before we get to the episode, though, we have a little bit of a special announcement. So for those of you watching, just for some information, this will actually be, for the foreseeable future, the last episode of Roll Call that I will be hosting. Duties will be going back to Joe, starting in 2024. But you're not done with me yet. I'm getting a little bit of a promotion. I like to say I'll be moving on to some other responsibilities in the channel, so you'll still see me around. But yeah, Gemma, you're gonna be my last episode of Roll Call, so I hope you're excited about that, because I certainly am. And in terms of what's coming up for the new year, just keep a lookout for the channel. I'm sure Joe and Felicity and Marco will probably have some sort of a yearly update video for us. So I'm really excited. I know what the plans are, and I think they're gonna be a lot of fun. But that's for then. Let's focus on now. Gemma, first of all, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm vibing. It's still, well, it's barely noon. It's only like 1 p.m. here, so
Awesome.
days barely happened. Just been playing Sims. Yeah.
It's almost 6 p.m. here, and it is pitch black outside, so it's about as different as it could be, which does not surprise me in the slightest. Twig, Twig, Twig. What a character.
Yeah.
Our little bean, our little twiglet. Does anyone have more nicknames than Twig in the campaigns? Little bird.
Branch.
Branch.
Like...
Forgot about Branch. I thought that was like if she
Branch
started to
is
like.
close to Twiglet.
That's true. Twig has been such an interesting character in the campaign, so I'm really looking forward to getting to talk to her about her. But as you recall, the last episode I did, I accidentally stole one of your questions that you had for Kayla. I think that I was just talking, and I took one of the questions you asked. That like you sent me to ask.
Joe.
I don't remember.
I think it was for the Isles retrospective.
I stole someone's question, and I felt really bad. So we're gonna start by asking everyone else's questions to you, so I don't accidentally steal someone's stuff. So
Okay, fire away.
we're gonna start with Felicity. My question is, what is Twig to you? I assume she's not just another character. You've been playing her for years now, so she must mean a lot, and I'd love to know how much.
I mean, she's my little child, my little ball of anxiety. I think, I don't know. I think obviously playing any character for that long, like you care a lot about them. But I think Twig feels different in the sense that, like, she is the character I've had the longest just in anything. And she's also, she started off as like an actual child and is still very much a child. Like, it very much feels like she's been such a journey character, and like being able to watch her grow and to feel so loved, like, I don't know, I've always really loved that about her, and being able to see how she's growing. It's like a proud, like, proud like parent thing, because she is my child. And so yeah, I think obviously, it's been a hectic couple of years, but like she's been like my little anchor stone in the worst way, because she is its anxiety, but like works anyway, I guess. So yeah, I think she's just always just been like something I can look forward to, like, playing, experiencing, being. So yeah, I love her.
I think it's funny to see where Twig is now, like officially the leader of like House Forrester, the Lady of House Forrester, and then jump back to like, you know, anyone says anything to her and immediately she just starts crying. Like that's pretty much what Twig was in the beginning. It was like she was so worried of just like letting people down and disappointing them, and now, well, got a lot more responsibility on those shoulders now. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's
she'll
gonna
still
be
cry if
interesting.
people talk to her. I mean, I'll still cry if people talk to me. So.
Relatable.
Twig is me. Twig is like all the like anxiety in me, I feel like. I don't need to really roleplay with Twig. I just be Twig.
You just respond as you feel is appropriate. I see. Well, those are the
Honestly.
best characters.
She is just my self-insert. Yeah.
All right, moving on to Joe. I have no questions for Gemma. All right, good to know. Sorry, that was just funny. I had to read it out. All right, But I have 3 from Kayla. I know that when we
Make up
first
for it.
began the game, you mentioned that Twig was never intended to be a long-term character. How do you think you as a player had to adapt and change her as a character to fit a more long-term story? And sorry, before you answer this, how long was Isle supposed to go again? Because I always forget. Like, was it like 10 sessions and that was it, or I know it wasn't
I
long.
I think I think it was a nebulous until it finished cooking. And then it just turned into a slow roast. Like I don't think there was any like set cutoff. But I think it would have only been like maybe like 10, 15 sessions at longest. Um so yeah. But in terms of the question, I imagine that was all the question. I think I think it's just like I think it's almost the same like with any character. Like you never really know where things are gonna go, so you can't really plan for things to be long term anyways.
True.
And so I feel like with Twig, I think very early on, I kind of like as soon as like it kind of revealed that we're going to be here for longer, it's just kind of feeding into like where she feels cracks. I think like, you know, especially with like her relationship with Nalfian, which is obviously such an important thing to both their characters. I think that was something that kind of had the groundworks very, very early on. And so I think just kind of leaning into that and like letting her kind of shift and change and move into um where things could develop, like, you know, with her relationship with Nalfian. And obviously then with everything with the Foresters, like letting her kind of go onto that track and just seeing what the fuck happens. I don't think it was honestly too much of a shift, honestly.
Mm,
But yeah, I think it's just like being mindful of those things.
fair enough. All right, got 2 more from Kayla. What is Twig's proudest moment? Well, I guess this is a 2-parter question, so 3 more questions. My bad. What is Twig's most? What is Twig's proudest moment versus what is her most embarrassing moment?
Man. Proudest moment for her, the tourney, winning the tourney. Because you know nothing's more important in the world than a card game.
True.
Uh, and most embarrassing, I don't know. I'm really bad at embarrassing things, but I don't think it's just straight up a bad moment for her in general. But I think in the Astral Sea with
Mm,
Morcella, because it's like because I remember it was a thing where she had to like stealth through, and that was all she had to do. She just had to stealth, the thing that Twig is meant to be good at, and she just doesn't. She fails. She like I don't know, trips up something. I can't remember. But she just fucks up, and then the whole infamous thing with Marcella just being like, you know, she's just disappointing and she's not even worth her time. I think that just kind of struck Twig in the worst way. Because you know she's meant to be good at it. You know she's meant to be good at all this Forrester shit, and here's like the very like um villain of it all, just basically dismissing her instantly from their first time meeting. Um, and so yeah,
yeah.
I'd say that's a pretty valid embarrassment though. So
For the record, as a listener who was there when that happened, that I felt so bad for Twig. I was like, this is
I
fucking
did too.
rough. I was like, this is so bad. Just, I think she like stepped on like a dried vine and like it cracked and Morcella hurted her. It was something like that.
I don't
But
even know.
yeah, oh gosh. And then before I get into Kayla's last question, like, what is it about kingdoms and castles? Like, why did that become so important for Twig? Like, why was that something that like you as a player kind of had Twig stick with? Because it's led to a lot of really interesting stuff, and a lot of conversations have been around Twig based on like kingdoms and castles. But like, why in the very early days of Twig, why you were like, this is something that I'm gonna keep using and keep being a thing?
I mean, honestly, it probably sounds bad, but I don't really remember like so much the beginning of it. Like I remember they just the only reason they got the cards was because they were shopping for something else in like Hearthcrest or something. And I don't think there was anything, at least at the beginning, that like I was instantly like, yeah, I want to just like have this and make this part of the character. I think that very much just kind of happened, But I think for Twig, I think it's just the whole thing of just like, you know, when you are young, you'll just find something that you're like, yeah, this is neat. And because you don't have many other like things to care about at that stage, like you haven't experienced so many other things, you just kind of latch onto it. And I think for Twig, it's just like, it was something that she started being good at pretty early. I can't remember if we were actually rolling or whatever, or if it was just the fact that she was the only one in the party that actually cared about it. But I think she kind of like figured out that, she's kind of good at this. She's kind of okay. And then she became the greatest. But like that came in due time. And so I think it's just that whole reaching for something that you're good at. And yeah, I think she just kind of stuck with it. Because it was a distraction. It was something that she was good at. And I think that was very much something that she needed,
I think it
So
was.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that sense of like control and just like, well, there are rules and like there are confines and
Mm,
like it's a lot of stuff that she could control, whereas there was so much in her life that she had absolutely no control over. That there's probably
yeah.
a little bit of
Biggest
like
rule lawyer.
small reclaiming, of, like at least it's something.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, do you guys remember when you guys bought a Nalfian and Underdark deck? That was a good idea. I
I, uh,
I remember as a viewer, I
I
was
think
like, "What are you guys doing?" I was like, "What is
because
this?"
because I can't remember if it was Eurydice or Twig that had the idea first. I want to say Eurydice, so it's not my fault. Um, but I remember the thought was it's just like, okay, we know the Underdark is important to Nalfian. Like, here's this Underdark elf, and like we knew already that like there was obviously like the cards relate to places and people and history and all to those things. And so it's kind of the thing of just like, yeah, like you're from the Underdark, you'll love this. This is like, your culture.
Oh God.
Um,
Oh God. It's your
and just be like,
culture.
oh yeah, this would be something that's like really meaningful for you. And in Twig's defense, she's a dumb kid. So again, I totally think that should all be on Eurydice's part and totally not Twig's fault at all. It was a good faith though, like from both of them. I remember that being true as much.
I just remember as a viewer long before I ever joined Isles, I was just like, "Oh no, don't do it, don't do it." And then you guys did it. Like
I think
I thought it was
yeah,
a bit at first, like you were just joking you were gonna do it. And I was like, "Oh my God, they actually bought it. They're actually
I
giving it to him."
I think us as players, I think we were joking at first, but then we were like, yeah, we can justify this.
Oh man,
So
Ruffy.
yeah. Alpian's fine though, so I don't think,
He's fine
it's
now.
no big deal. Yeah. He
Maybe
got over it.
you should buy him a deck that he'll like actually use now though, like because I imagine he just uses decks that like Twig's not using, right?
Probably.
Like I don't know if
I
he
feel
has his
like we
own.
did though. I can't remember. If not, it'd be the Tarkir deck for sure. I
Whew.
also think we have it. Big probably has it. I don't know. Someone has it.
Nah, I don't know. All right, last one from Kayla. How do you think you as a player have grown since the LOP days? Legends of Promise, for
Okay.
those who are watching the campaign, where that's where you guys met, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Okay.
was our first campaign together where all of us met each other. Besides Joe and Kayla, it's yeah. Um, but man, I think it's easy just like because it was really my first campaign. Like before I joined LOP, I had been in like I think one, maybe two one shots that were like designed for new players. And so I think like LOP was the first time I was coming in like this is going to be a character that's going to be, part of this story. And it was also like kind of, before a point where I realized that like, who your character is and what their story is going to be important. It's not just them in the campaign, like they're very much part of the campaign in terms of who they are and all that. And so I think going into LOP, like I didn't really have a strong grasp of what that meant. And so I think when I was designing Krillith, which is the character I played,
What class
I
was
think I
Krillith, by the
kind of
way?
she was a wild magic sorcerer and a tiefling as
Nice.
well.
Hey, there we
Yeah.
go.
Um, and so I think I kind of like I was just like, oh yeah, these are all these like little attributes that I'd like her to have, but like I wasn't thinking so much about like what her story would be and like what that would look like. And so I think going into Isles and like crafting Twig, I think like I had more of a conscious like stream of what her as a character is. Like, you know, this is where she's from, this is where, you know, she's gonna kind of go. You know, I knew she'd have to kind of break out of her little anxiety bubble and, you know, to kind of like think about different possibilities for her and those kind of, you know, own character wants and wishes and all those things. And so I think I just like going into making her, I was more conscious of that. And then also more conscious of trying to like actually engage with that with the other characters as well, you know? And I think it's something that's said a lot where it's just the beginning of Lop was like really tight, where everything just felt like it meshed so well. And I don't think that would have happened if I hadn't gone through Lop first, because like Kit, who DM'd it, he was also very story driven. And so I think without that kind of learning and kind of experience, I don't think at least Twig would have done that much in the beginning of Isles. So yeah, I think it kind of just primed me as a player. And then I don't know, I feel like I've obviously grown through Lop, not through Lop, through ours as well. So yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is I feel like all the players have just gotten better and just grown as players through their experience in all of the campaigns that Joe's run on RWA and John too. And I think it's been really interesting to go back to those first sessions of Afera or Salamander Coast and even Isles, and then looking at where they are now. I think just like the jump in terms of the player quality, and then also the Joe as a DM creating the story. I think everything has just gotten better with time, which I think is just awesome. There's no love has been lost of just man, we've been doing this for 3 years, how the story not over. It's man, we are going strong, 8 more years, let's go. I know they're not going to go that much longer, but I just love that
No, I think
everyone
they
just
could.
they could, but I don't think Joe will do
Compete you,
that.
Joe.
It's out of our
But
hands.
no, I think that's kind of the benefit though. Like you get used to the kind of way the stories work under a DM, and obviously, you know, you get used to playing with other players, and I think that helps a lot. I think it's a lot easier for like more established groups than like more like just meshed together groups to like continue and create something so long lasting and I feel like emotionally at least impactful.
Mm-hmm. That's true. All right, next segment here. This is going to require a lot from you, so just fair warning here. So
Mm-hmm.
overall, do you have a favorite moment in the campaign for Twig specifically? And then I'll get into part two after you answer that.
Man. I mean, cop out answer, taking back the Forest of Land. I think that's very much easily the best thing that she has done as a character, and I feel like it's been one of the most like it's been like the funnest moment I've had as a player with her as well. Because you know, selfishly, it was just about her. So, I think that would be an easy takeaway. Just yeah, it let Twig feel epic. You know, she was the one to get the final hit on Marcella and all that. And yeah, I feel so proud about her. So
One of my
yeah,
one of my favorites from, because I mean I agree, Hasram's Hollow is definitely the obvious answer, but one I feel like I don't hear people talk about enough is I really loved when I think you guys were in, I'm gonna butcher names because it was early in the campaign, but the Fire Forest we just passed through it East Nalor.
it's no law.
Okay,
Which
close
is
enough.
ironically still Hasn't Hollow. So
That's true. That's true. I forgot about that. But I loved when I think this is where you guys were, but it was the night when the fire tortoise was talking to Twig, and she followed him into the tree to go talk to
yeah, to
Mother
Elowen.
Mountain's Elwyn. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole Alice in Wonderland vibe of just talking to the turtle, and then she talks to Dalphie and looks back, the turtle's gone. She's like, "No, come back!" She feels like she lost him, she scared him. Then Dalphine starts talking to Yuri. She sees him, sneaks off, goes into the tree, goes into wherever that Feywild. They were in the Feywild. Were they in the Feywild talking to Elwyn? I don't
I
remember.
I think so. It was just Elowen's domain, right?
Yeah.
Like I know there was like the Suni tombstone, so I think that's
Oh
just in the
yeah,
Feywild.
forgot about that. But yeah, that whole moment I thought was so cool, and I thought it was such an interesting like situation to put Twig in, because I think it's so interesting to see how Twig operates separated from everyone else. Because I know obviously everyone like supports Twig, loves Twig, wants like what's best for her, but I think it's so interesting when Twig is put in these situations where she's alone and she just there is no one to like lean on or to look to see like, well, is this good? Is it am I approaching this correctly? And it's always just interesting for me just seeing how Twig kind of always rises to those occasions, even if she feels like she doesn't, you know? So
Hmm.
I don't really have like a through line here. I just really liked that moment and wanted to make sure it was brought up. So, all
Oh man,
right, now.
I just Twig following shit is a thing as well, because like obviously in Hazren, like there was the whole thing about following the black roses, which like took them all to the different trees and all that. So Twig
Mm,
just follows shit sometimes, it works. That's my main takeaway.
hey, if it works, it works. You can't argue with the results.
Mm.
Just saying. All right, now, if you had to pick a favorite moment with each of the party members that you feel like kind of not necessarily like defined their relationship, but you felt like it just was a pretty big moment for them, what would you pick for each party member as their moment with Twig?
Man, I think let's do this kind of chronologically. I would say that I'm instantly gonna drop it,
Chronologically, okay.
but um, I think very early on in the campaign, I think this would have only been like session like 15, 20 or something. Um, when they were going through the library and through like the archives and all that. And Twig found the things about her and Eurydice. We're starting with Eurydice. That's a lead into that. I should have clarified.
I was like, who is this?
I'm gonna lead you down. This is gonna be my tortoise.
I was trying to follow like Twig, so I knew you
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
let me
yeah.
down.
I bet. I remember it was kind of finding out that like there was like these weird circumstances about both their births, and this is before they like each of them knew their respective kind of like thing, I guess, like Twig with the Foresters, and then Eurydice with Day and like the Dawnbreaker stuff. I remember, that was something that they kind of had just between them two at first. And it was this kind of very early moment of Eurydice then kind of being this almost like motherly feels the wrong word, but that kind of protective force, because then it was Eurydice that came out to like Twig's mother's grave when she went that second time, and Eurydice would then be the one to be there to comfort Twig, especially in that early campaign. Before we had like our new members, and before Nalfian was like not just a dick, peace and love. And so I think that was very much an early thing of just Eurydice then being protective, even to like things later on with I think it's like House Holt, yeah, with the engagement thing, and Eurydice having to be the one to step in and be like, okay, we're not going to talk about engagements with this child at the minute. Like we could step away from that right now, because Twig had just completely shut down. And so, yeah, I think that's the thing for Eurydice. It's not so much like a singular moment so much, but just that kind of like initial start to what their relationship would be.
All right.
Um,
I'm gonna pause you
yeah.
real quick. Sorry, unless you had more
Okay.
for Eurydice there. I thought that
No,
was
I was going to move on.
okay. Sorry, Joe just asked a question in the chat, and I saw it, and I want to
Oh,
ask it
yeah?
before I totally miss it because that will happen. So, question for Gemma: is there a small moment that comes to mind that had a big impact on Twig?
Oh, shit.
Thank you, Joe.
Small moment. What are considered small moments? Um,
It could even be something that just people don't realize that it affected Twig more than they realize. You know?
I think. Hmm. I think. I don't know if it counts as a small moment, but I think with everything that happened in the City of Radiance, And I know Twig had kind of touched on it briefly when she was speaking to Lord Drago, but I think just seeing, you know, seeing this city that's like, you know, has all these leaders that aren't really functioning as leaders. And, you know, knowing at that point what she was meant to become and that she too was meant to become like the lady of a house. I think being in that city was kind of a bit of a like wake up call feels wrong, but like a realization of how important it all is, you know?
Mm.
Because that city was crumbling because all these like what do they call
The
pillars
pillars.
were like, doing the wrong thing, you know. They weren't being responsible. They were only thinking about their own greed, about doing all these different things and not really embodying what they should be. Um and so yeah, I think honestly that was like a big lesson for her in a small way. Where it's like there was never anything directly where it's like, oh yes, Twig is involved with this. Not as much as like, you know, not much beyond what the party was.
Right.
Um, but yeah, just kind of like seeing how these other leaders engage and being like, well, that's just terrible. I don't want that, you know. Um, so yeah, not so much a moment, but yeah, I'd say that would be it.
I mean, I think it's interesting just because, Twig had all these, like, I mean, Alec being the one that pops up in mind the most, but, these people that she thinks are just like, well, these are leaders, like, they're good, they're doing their best, like, that's why they're in charge, they must be the best at it, like, that's how you pick a leader. And then realizing that, like, nah, like, that's not what always happens, like, it should be what happens, but, like, the wrong people can be put in charge, and, like, it takes work and it takes commitment and it takes dedication to be good at it, and to make sure that, what you want, is truly like what's best for the people that are like beneath you. So no, I think that makes total sense as to why that would be something that Twig, like, seeing it on a much grander scale in the city of Radiance, but just seeing that in general, like, yeah, people make mistakes and sometimes people make bad decisions, and I need to make sure I'm not doing that. That absolutely makes sense to me. It totally didn't occur to me in the moment, but yeah, I could absolutely see that.
Yeah. Um, but I guess back to the other
Yep,
things.
there's your answer,
Back to
Joe.
character
Moving
things.
on.
Yeah, woo. Transition. Uh, let's do Lila next. Um, I think for Lila, the kind of thing that kind of set up their relationship, I think, and I can't remember the context of what they were talking about completely, but I remember, you know, Twig brought up the fact that she thinks Lila, you know, is this perfect person. Um, and because I remember that it was during when they were sorting everything out with the college and all her family things were coming up as well. Um, and I think kind of before they got to Half Crest, like, you know, Twig had barely known Lila, and Lila was just this, you know, person that seemed to have it all together. You know, she was smart, she was pretty, like she was doing all these things that she loved, and she just like always seemed to like know what to do, know what to say, and all those things that, like, you know, Twig would aspire to be. And I think just during that conversation, like Lila just then being like, okay, but I'm not perfect, you know. I think that kind of I think it was like a thing for Twig to kind of realize that, you know, Lila is also really hurting, even though she is still all those things in Twig's mind, you know? And I think then it would go on to show that, like, okay, maybe Lila's not exactly perfect, but she's dang near better than that because, like, she's still doing what she always believes is the right thing. She always treats things with kindness, you know? Even down to like when they were in like the pocket dimension and it was just Twig and Lila and Cassius, and like Twig was freaked the fuck out. She was pointing her crossbow as if that's gonna do anything. And Lila was still just like, okay, no, we're just gonna talk about this first, and still really determined to go through with her plan. And the fact that, you know, it worked, you know, not necessarily immediately in that moment, but like those things pay off. Like the fact that Lila could stick to these things, and things will, you know, work out because of it. I think, you know, that's very much their relationship where Lila's like this older sister to Twig, and like Twig she wants to be Lila when she grows up. So yeah, I think that's that for them. We will go to Yorick next. And
my man.
yeah, he's all right. Uh,
Yeah, some days.
I think for them, it's their talks they've had about fate. I think that has very much defined what their relationship is. And I think especially that first conversation, even though it wasn't fun for either of them, especially not Yorick, where Twig, you know, was basically saying, like, yeah, you're probably just a tiefling because you're made to suffer. Have fun.
I was about to say, I feel like especially Twig, because boy, oh boy, did Yorick bite back during that conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think Twig was expecting that because I think, you know, no one really engages Twig on her bullshittery like that. Not in a way that they ignore her, but like they don't push back, you know.
They don't really question it.
Yeah, and so I think Twig at the moment realized, like, oh yeah, what I'm saying, like, really fucking hurt Yorick. And she didn't know what to do with that. So she talked to Lila because obviously Lila knows everything. And I think like the next morning or something, she went to Yorick and apologized, and Yorick was just like, accept. Like it wasn't this thing of like wanting to hold resentment or malice, even though like, you know, Twig obviously really hurt him. Like the fact that Yorick was just like, okay, but it is what it is. Like, do you want to explain, like, you know, what you were thinking, and just kind of like giving Twig room to kind of think out those things. And then obviously it's been something that they've come back to again. I remember it was like, and they were talking about like Event Hala, and you know, the fact that maybe Yorick is the kind of good thing that's, you know, long due for her. And so I think that's always been an interesting thing between them because they do have very different opinions about fate and about like things being predestined. But it's always, you know, it's always civil and in a way that I feel like pushes both characters forward. So
I loved that first fight between the two of them. Like honestly, it's one of my favorite moments in Isles looking back on it. And I say that unironically. Like I thought it was such a good display for the both of them. And I really loved that, like, for me, I thought it was like, because like there was some stuff with the Ventahala, but I thought it was like the first time that Yorick was like really showing the cracks of like the facade that he put on. Because like the way that I kind of define Yorick is he's a complex character that pretends to be very simple. And I think that with what Twig said, that was one of the few things that he just wasn't going to really take lying down because it was so personal to him. And I felt like it was a really good display of just like the both of them, and like you said, for Twig to kind of see how she handled that and how she needed to take that time, she wasn't able to fix it in that moment. And you know, and she acknowledged to like Lila, like, hey, I think I really upset Yorick. And like she took, you know, kind of like you said, it was like a day or two, I don't remember how long it was, but you know, it was like a session or two before they were able to really talk about it because there was so much going on at the beginning of Hearthcrest. Like there was so much going on in a good way. But yeah, it was and I'm glad that we've been able to kind of come back to that over and over again. And again, York's still not fully sold. I don't know if he ever will be, but you know, I do like that it's something that we've been able to have be a through line for them throughout the campaign, and I don't think it's felt forced at all. So yeah, I'm glad you picked that.
Lucky Law. Lucky Last little Nalfian. I think for them, at least the thing that feels like it's one of the more memorable, I think that night when they were in Highland Pass and there was like the festival because they saved the city, blah blah blah.
So just to be clear, we gave up on chronological order. Just double checking here.
Yeah, look, okay. To ask the question, I got distracted. It's fine.
Sorry, I had to point that out.
You didn't have to. But yeah, the quiet moment between Nalfian and Twig, when they were on like the Ferris wheel, and Nalfian, gave her the locket that had, his wife and a kid, like a little portrait of him in it. Um, I think, I think that was like the start of them like understanding each other, because obviously, Twig not so much, but Nalfi especially had been like trying to be this protective force, like even since they first met. Like I remember the first time like Twig and Nalfi met, like Nalfi was giving her coins. Um and so like Nalfi's always had this kind of idea that he's meant to protect and be there for Twig. But I think that moment really defined to him what that kind of meant. And I think, previously like in the day, like I remember he like was like trying to like win her like a stuffed owlbear or some shit like that, and like trying to give her things. And I think he kind of realized that what Twig needs isn't like materials, it's like someone to be there for her. And I feel like that was the kind of turning point in their relationship where he kind of figured that out, and Twig started to realize that, there's a lot of history to Nalfian, and there's obviously like a lot of things that he's just not ready to share yet. And that's okay. Like, she wasn't allowed to open the locket at that point, and she didn't until she was allowed to. When up to that point, like, Twig had been like a nosy bitch, like she would question everything, want to know and want to understand things, because she was like, she had in her head that it was all to kind of like, keep things from her. But I think that kind of moment, it was that realization that, like, Nalfian kind of needs this. He kind of needs this space, and he needs to be able to kind of branch out in his own little way first. Um, so yeah, I think that was their, you know, one of the more defining moments in their relationship.
I remember the moment he literally handed to her that Twig immediately was trying to open it. He was like,
Yeah,
"No, no." It was just so funny, but I was like, "Yeah, that's what Twig would do. That is exactly how that would have played out."
yeah.
Oh, all right. So since you were willing to share, now you get to listen to a little bit because I have some favorite moments from the gang here that I'm gonna share. All right, we're gonna jump to who do I want to start with? We'll do Felicity. All right, what are some favorite Twig moments? All right. Oh yeah, because I asked them to pick like specifically like for their character and stuff, kind of like what you were saying earlier. So from Felicity, definitely the two of them flying in to attack Morcella's heart. Jim and I were so stressed and trying to plan how to not die was any fun. Wait, sorry, and trying to plan how to not die was very fun. That was very hard for me for some reason. But honestly, the cinematic vibe of the entire thing was just beautiful. Also, this is so sad, but when she was crying over Blossom when Lila had to cast Revivify, that truly broke me.
And I forgot Blossom died for a minute. Oh god. Man,
Yeah, it's a good thing Revivifies a spell. There'd be a lot more dead people in these games.
Jesus, yeah.
I would. Just saying. All right, I'm gonna jump to Joe next. Who, while he didn't pick specific characters, I just asked him to pick a favorite moment. So for him, he said, by far and away, the Kingdoms and Castle tourney and the speech before the siege of Hazard's Hollow. Classic options. One kind of giving way to another in a weird way. Twig standing up and taking control. One on
In a
a
way, yeah.
battlefield of playing cards and one on an actual one.
When you think about it, they're really the same kind of battlefield.
Yeah, truly one victory equates another in this case, we'll say. All right, God, I have a whole ass list from Kayla, so we're just gonna jump to that. Oh, Joe
Give me
forgot
more of the
something.
rules.
Hang on. He's
Oh,
popping up in the chat.
he forgot a holy cow. Oh no.
I add that one. What one? Joe, we're all waiting on you now. What'd you forget?
I think, was it like the Blossom moment or something? I don't know. It would have been something you were talking about.
No,
Um,
maybe. All right. Well,
Man, we'll never know. What a shame.
we'll never know. Can't ask him afterwards either. Oh well.
No.
All right, so I'm gonna jump into Kayla's whole list. So we're just gonna keep going. All right. From Kayla, I feel like there are so many fantastic moments with Twig and Nalf that it's hard to choose just one. I have to say, if it wasn't for Twig, I don't think that Nalfian would have had half the special moments that he's had. She really shaped who he is as a character. Some of my favorite moments include the very first time they shared their method of swallowing their fear together, a cute moment that I stole from an anime Gemma and I watched. What anime was it?
I hope John's not watching this because he always makes fun of it. But it's Kami-sama Kiss. So, yeah, it's great anime.
What's it about? Because I've never heard of it. I'm just curious now.
It's about a girl that finds an abandoned shrine and accidentally becomes a god because of it. And then she falls in love with the like the keeper of the shrine. So she becomes a god and she kisses. Kami-sama means god. Yeah. Anyway, it's a thing. Yeah,
happens. Typical Thursday. All right. I also loved the birthday party we threw for her. It was so much fun to get everyone of Twig's friends together in one location and share what we love about Twig and give her presents. I love that Yorick gave her homework when he gave her the present. he completely refused to give it to her unless she played along.
The gift of learning.
Yeah, what'd you learn this past year? And I can't remember what she said, but he literally just stared at her until he answered it.
I literally couldn't remember because I was panicking because I was not expecting. I remember that's also a standout moment, I feel like, for me as well. Like, I've never felt more loved as a person or as a character than, seeing all that shit, so...
I feel like you need moments of levity like that in, D&D, like, when the story is about, like, saving the world. Like, obviously that's a very silly thing, and, like, people are actually dying, and, like, there's a real threat, but it's just, like, but you gotta find ways to, like, stay happy and, like, not lose that hope, and I think it was, like, obviously, like, that was really cool for, like, Twig, but I think it was really important for everyone to remember that, like, this moment, like, while it was great for Twig, but it's, like, we're fighting so that everyone can still have those moments going forward. Because, like, if we don't, it'll just be gone one day, and, like, there'll be truly nothing left.
Yeah.
It's like that scene in Castlevania with, like, the boat captain Isaac, when he's like, there's no more people, no more gifts, no more kindness, Not to relate Twig to Castlevania, but it was just a thought that came to mind.
Very, fitting vibe for her.
Yeah, Twig would binge watch, I imagined.
Twig from Dracula. That's gonna be her rule.
There we go. I love Twig's speech she gave before the attack into Hazran's Hollow. Just watching her develop that confidence and saying just the right words to lead her people was fantastic. Were you planning on having Twig address the troops until Yorick talked to her about it? Like, was that something that even you were planning on doing?
No. I was like, I don't need to do this. Twig is just gonna sit back. But I think it makes sense, and I think it was a good moment. Yeah, because like I think I've said this as well, but a lot of her speech, like when I was writing it, I wanted it, like, me as a player, for it to have that kind of like dual purpose of, like, obviously it was like, okay, let's go take back Hasmond's Hollow, let's go do this, but when she was like talking about how, like, I can't remember exactly, but like how the land's like been forgotten and how, like, it's still worth, like, saving, it's still worth something. A lot of those tones were kind of like, as applicable to Twig, of like not wanting people to give up on her, on, believing that she can still become like this like powerful lady in a powerful house. Like, I don't know. I think that was really important in that aspect as well. Because in a way it's like Twig recognizing that about herself too. So yeah. Fun little tidbit, I guess.
I love that. I love when moments serve a dual purpose like that. So that's actually really interesting. I love that. Okay, now we're getting into some silly ones, because of course we are. Taking it way back, the initial interaction with her and Danny and the boys. It was fantastic and hilarious to see Twig attempt to pull off a sandwich heist.
And just get bullied by raccoons. I feel like that was the most important part of that.
Look, I've said this many a times, and I'll say it till the day I die. The image of Nalfian squaring up with an actual raccoon will never leave my mind because like this is someone who's gonna face
Yeah.
down like the Dark One himself, and it's like I remember when you were ready to throw hands with a fucking raccoon because he made a little girl
Yeah,
cry.
dealing with a raccoon was one of the greatest challenges Nalfians ever faced. Just period, you know.
Yeah, true, true.
Um,
I mean, technically, we don't know who would have won that fight. Still, to this day,
uh,
there's no real way
I
of
just
us ever
loved how
finding
confused
out.
Nalfian was. Nalfian just knew he couldn't like just kick the raccoon. Like, oh, I loved it.
I just remember Joe describing Danny like getting up and being like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" You know, it's like waving his hands as his paws, I guess, like a raccoon could just be like, What are you gonna do? Bring it! Like, what are you gonna do?"
And now
I
he's a
love Danny.
squire and soon to be knight. So like, really, who had the bigger glow up?
Oh yeah, is there
I think.
there should be a one shot around Danny and other animal foresters saving the land from a secret threat. I'm just saying that
I
now.
just want Daddy and trouble. I think that's all I need personally. Just a little
Oh,
vignette.
oh,
Spend some time with
Tiberius.
them. Uh,
All right. Moving on with Kayla. The creation of Sir Doofencockle, of course. Did Twig come up with that name? I thought it was a Blossom name, and then Twig just kind
I
of stole it.
I think it was. I think it was a Blossom name, and Twig was just like, yeah, it's the funniest shit I've heard my whole life. And now it's like, you know, we gotta get it like somehow official, you know, like have it like a middle name or some shit, you know. I think I think if Twig is like in charge of like, you know, obviously the Forester House records and all that, I think she could slip that in and like put it into an official document somewhere. I hope that's my greatest wish.
I like to think it won't even be that subtle. I think there will be this amazing like gold statue of Nalfian created, and at the bottom it'll say like Sir Nalfian Doofencockle, just in very tiny letters under Sir Nalfian, and he's just like, God damn it.
Man,
Why does it say that?
I
And
hope
all the
so.
parents like taking their kids are like, I don't know. I don't think that's
I
his
hope that's
name.
how Nalfian's remembered. Not for the tourney, not for becoming a Green Knight. I think it's just the Doofencockle thing that's most important.
Love you, Kayla. Just if you're watching right now. Um, when Twig, moving on to Kayla. When Twig stepped up to that one dick who tried to poison her during the Green Lady Festival.
Lord Draker.
Yeah, how did Twig like? I mean, obviously she didn't feel like great in that moment, but knowing that like she was almost like politically assassinated. I mean, like that must made shit get real quick for her.
Yeah, cause I remember because that was where she like, you know, talked about City of Radiance. I think she knew like obviously lords and ladies will be like dicks to each other and to other people, but like that wasn't something that was meant to happen. Not in Ivarion, at least. Like obviously there had been an attempt against the prince's life, but that wasn't a lot of like there was a lot of background to that. There was a lot of context. And like I don't know why Drago decided to have beef with a literal 16-year-old. I think it is because she is a literal 16-year-old and he feels threatened. Um but it just it didn't feel like it would be that serious. But because of the fact that they are like, you know, respectively a lord and a lady, like it can very quickly become a matter of life or death because, you know, they're powerful people in charge of a lot of land, a lot of resources, a lot of all these different things. So it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense that, you know, it'd be advantageous to just murder another one if you can. So
True.
yeah, I think it was that kind of reality check with Twig of like how important this is, you know.
And then I think I know the answer to this, and maybe I've just forgotten because there's like literally hundreds of hours of content in the Isles of Ivarion that I cannot memorize. When the whole thing with Marjorie happened, I remember, most of the party was like, well, we shouldn't rat her out. And Twig and York were in the camp of like, well, she tried to assassinate the prince of this land. We should probably tell the king about it, you know? And
Yeah.
I know why York felt that way, although I don't remember if it came up. But like, why did Twig feel so strongly about that?
I mean, goes back like Twig is a rules lawyer, you know, like you shouldn't go poisoning other people. That's kind of super fucking illegal. Um, and I think Twig wasn't wholly in the camp yet of like, okay, but actually she's a good person and won't do this again. And the reason that she was doing it was like super justified actually. Um, I think as much as Twig was just like, yeah, she seems like a nice person, but she was also super ready to murder the king. And, you know, it's literally like one of the highest crimes you could do. That's like, you know, one of the most not okay things. And so I think Twig was just like, well, we're responsible as, you know, as people of Iverion, and, you know, if she's trying to become like a lady and in the courts off the king, like, it's probably wouldn't be great if she just kind of sat by when he was almost gonna have his son murdered. And so
Yeah.
I think Twig was just like, well, I've like obviously, you know, it's a bad thing for her to do, but it's just like she has a responsibility as a lady to like not let that happen, because like, you know, at that point Twig was very much like she needs to do shit for the Forrester house. Like she needs to make sure that they're successful. Um and so I think it just kind of like came into that, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I kind of figured it was something like that. I just kind of wanted confirmation because I wasn't entirely certain if there was more to it or not. Oh, okay. I had a question on the tip of my tongue and now I lost it. Oh, this is going to frustrate me. Hang on. No, I have. Oh, got it. Sorry. So, Twig, from the beginning, has been learning how to, gain more confidence, start stepping up to, like, be that leader to where now, she is Lady Forrester. If you had to pick, and again, this is a thing for each party member, so have fun with that, what would you say is, like, a lesson that Twig has learned from each party member that you think has helped or will help her in the years to come?
Man. I'm gonna try and go in the same order I did before. I know it started with
Not
Eurydice.
chronologically?
Don't
Okay.
remember. Shut up. I don't remember who did second. Um,
It was
but
Yuri, Lila, Yorick, and Alfian,
sick.
I
Um,
think.
it is now. So starting with Eurydice, I feel like the thing that she learned from Eurydice is that, you know, um, kind of, you know, still going back to like when they kind of discovered all these different things about them, because I feel like out of anyone in the party, it's kind of been them two that have had these realizations about who they are in the past and who they're meant to be, and then having to live up to that. And I think from Eurydice, she learnt that, you know, you can choose what that path looks like, you know, like just because all these shitty things have happened, you can kind of choose how you grow from them, you know. And obviously, part of that choice was taken away from Eurydice in having to, you know, step up and become leader of the Hells. But, you know, I think there's something to be said of the fact that that's on her terms, you know, like she's the one that gets to decide when that happens, decides how that happens,
Yeah.
instead of just Day trying to like manipulate her into it. Um, and so I think that was probably the lesson from Eurydice of just, you know, being able to forge your own path, even if all these things have happened, you know, to have that strength to just continue through it. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Then Lila
Lila.
next.
Lila.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for Lila, I think it is like there is that very practical side of the fact that, you know, Lila has been involved with maybe not like a house, but the Tatianas are like basically a house. And so I think from Lila, like she's learnt a lot of like how to be a lady, like how to like, you know, how to like send letters and talk to lords and ladies and to do things, how to present yourself, you know, like raiding her little closet to get cute dresses. Um, I think there's been a lot of that practical side, but I think again, like Twig really looks up to Lila, like she wants to be Lila. And so I think just in everything that Lila is a lesson to Twig of, you know, trying to be that good, kind person. Um, and so, yeah, I think just kind of like how to act right. I think that kind of is what it boils down to. So yeah, I think that's the main lesson from her. Moving on to Yorick.
Yorick, yeah.
I think it is how to get like, pushed up against and kind of stay strong regardless, And I think it's also that the world is a lot more complex than I think Twig was kind of thinking. She used to have very black and white thinking. But I think Yorick kind of shook that up a lot. Obviously, with the whole like he's a tiefling, but like, blah blah that fate. But also just like being like, oh yeah, this is my devil Leventahala, but she's chill actually.
True.
I think that was a big shock, especially coming off everything with Day. And so I think Yorick has just consistently be this like just source of confusion to what Twig thinks is true. And, I think for Twig, it's just learning that that's okay. And like I said, that the world is a lot more complex than she thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad. As bad as it is sad, I think that's a lesson Twig needed. But yeah.
Sometimes we all just need a reminder.
Yeah. And then Lucky Loss, Nafian. I think Nalfian. I think obviously, there is that thing of just general confidence of learning that from Nalfian, but I also don't think Twig gets a lot of her confidence from Nalfian. Because a lot of Nalfian's confidence is, prideful, as like is always said, and comes from this cockiness and wanting to hide things. I think, if anything, it's not the confidence that Twig has taken away from Nalfian, but the softness, Because Nalfian will prop himself up as, this, like, unshakable force. But, like, I think through the campaign we know that's anything but true. And so I think even just, like, there's, like, kind of interpersonal skills of just being able to relate and to be patient with someone and to kind of, recognize when they've been hurt and do your best to navigate that in a way that's like, respectful to that other person too. So yeah, I think as much as confidence is the easy answer, I think it's anything but that. It's being vulnerable. Because, now in the beginning of the campaign just wasn't that and would refuse to show himself as such. But yeah, just seeing him do that, I think it's a good lesson.
I think Twig has realized through probably every member of the party that, like, as cliche as the saying is, it's like everyone's fighting battles you can't see. And just, like everyone kind of has it rough somewhere. It's just, again, like as simple as that sounds, I think truly remembering and like truly learning that it really changes how you look at people in the world in general. Because yeah, sometimes people just need that break or need that friend or they need that space. Because again, you never know. So yeah, just what it made me think of. That's all.
Yeah, and again, it's like that kid thing where it's just like you look at adults and you're like, man, they got all this shit together. Like, I don't know how to do that. And then, you start growing up and you're like, oh, God, when am I meant to have my shit together?
And your parents,
no one does.
Your parents are like, we've never had our shit together. And you're like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Everything was perfect growing up. They're like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think overall that is very much what it's been like for Twig. So, yeah. So no one knows what they're doing. But it's fine anyways, we get through it.
That's true. Going into the kind of Hell's arc, I know we've just kind of recently left what Twig's doing kind of behind, but do you have any sort of like hints or teases for us about maybe some stuff that's on Twig's mind? Is there anything she wants to talk to people about? Just any little fun snippets that we can look forward to?
I think I never think in specifics like that. But I will say I'm very I'm very interested in obviously like what we're doing down there. As much as it is the Hells, like it still also has that political aspect to it, and so I think Twig is going to be very much watching and taking in how those kind of dealings happen. Um, and I feel like it might be another kind of City of Radiance thing, where it's like the way that the leaders in Hell act and treat each other and obviously do all these things. Like, I think it's pretty safe to assume that it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
And so I think Twig's gonna be taking in a lot of that. I don't know what conversations are gonna come out of that. I think it's really gonna depend on, you know, how the party's treating it. Because I know there's some plans to kind of force potentially some devils into their contracts. And so I think how that looks like and, you know, the kind of optics of that, I think that's probably going to lead way to some things potentially. But yeah, I think it's difficult to say, really.
Fair enough. I just always think about like the next 28 conversations I want to have. I know not everyone does that, but I was just curious if there was anything in particular, but totally fair, totally fair.
No, we do vibes here. I
Nah,
never think.
I think way too much all the time, and I hate it, so I'm
No
envious.
thoughts, head empty.
No thoughts, head empty. All right, well, Gemma, we're about to hit the final segment, and you remember
Yeah,
that it's your favorite because
I
you love
do.
being
I'm
complimented.
ready to
So
leave.
yeah. Before we do that, was there anything
Hmm.
else about Twig that you wanted to discuss, or any questions you wanted to throw my way or to our audience in the Twitch chat? Just anything you want to talk about before we kind of wrap things up here.
Um, I think I'm good, honestly.
Okay. Everyone always says that, so that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, time for some heartfelt comments. So we're just going to jump right in.
Rip bed it off.
From Felicity. Do
Mm.
you need a minute or are you going to be okay?
No, I'll just sit here drinking my water. It's
All right.
fine.
From Felicity. Twig's journey in Isles is so sweet and unique. I love the little nerdy smarty pants that she is, but also her heart is so pure. Trying to navigate the world for herself, and now her house is such a challenge, and Gemma is doing such a great job navigating that for her. Gemma is also such a fun person to play D&D with. She is smart and takes all her bad rolls like a champ. Good thing for her big brain energy helps out even when her rolls suck. But for real, Gemma is an amazing friend. I have loved getting to know her these years through D&D games, video games, and both of us being judgy about random shit we talk about in the server. Thanks, Gemma, for being a positive energy in my life.
Good.
Moving on to Joe. Gemma has been such a fantastic friend and player in such an unexpected turn of events. I never would have thought that the super quiet girl playing Krillith. Okay.
Mm.
In the Legends of Promise campaign would become one of my best friends. And yes, even though we give each other so much shit all the time, you really are one of my closest friends, and I would not have it any other way. Twig has been such a fantastic addition to the campaign since day one, and I am so thankful to have someone so talented, funny, and although you might hate to admit it, full of love for the people she cares about. I never told you this, but you, in part, inspired the way Blossom interacted with the party, especially Nalfian, and I hope the amount of love I have for Blossom helps you see how much I care for you. I am so glad that, sorry, I'm just reading the Twitch chat real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, this last part. I'm so glad that Kayla's one Australian friend back in 2019 turned into one of my friends. I love you, Gemma, and and now that I've been sweet and nice, I know compliments make you uncomfy, so hopefully this will balance things out. Fuck you, you son of a bitch. I'm a kill Twig tomorrow. Sunglass emoji and cowboy hat emoji.
I hope you do.
P.S. Still love you, green heart.
Oh, cute.
So that's what Joe wanted to end on. So
No. Palette cleanser, I like it.
yeah, especially because we're on Kayla now.
Shit.
Yep. This is going to take a minute. All right. Yo, Gemma is my best friend. It has been such an honor to be able to play D&D with her for over 5 years now. I have had the opportunity to grow with her and start my journey in D&D with her thanks to our D&D dad. But it's truly crazy to see how, as a player, she has grown into somebody who is so incredibly intelligent, clever, witty, silly, and so insightful. It is an absolute delight to share a table with someone who has such an interesting take on the game, is always so sorry, is always so committed to their character and pushes to be a better player and a better father. Wait. Pushes me to be a better player and a better father. Sorry, I was very confused for a second. Twigg may have never been intended to be a long-term character, but I think you have done a fantastic job at showcasing how a character can mature into a staple of the Isles crew. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Gemma for seriously being my best friend, for putting up with my emotional ass and staying up for our late night cry sessions and giggling with our terrible country southern pirate accents. I'm gonna need to hear that later. It's crazy that you are so far. No, well, now it's in the Aether. I have to hear it. It's crazy that you are so far away, but I've always felt so close to you. Crochet buddies, Sims pals, anime girlies, and chaotic goofballs. Thank you for sticking by my side. One day I'm going to give you a huge hug. Thank you for helping me find my peel and being a bright light in my life. What does find my peel mean?
Let's move on.
Okay. Well, as always, it's hard to add on when you're following such, strong statements. But obviously, Gemma, you have been a big part of everyone's life in this game, and no one would have it any other way. Um, for me, I'm just glad we still get to play together. When I had to leave Salamander Coast, I was devastated to lose my in-game twin. I'm still sad to this day that Morin and Carousel are not together and not playing together. You've always challenged me to be better, and I like to think that I've become better by being able to play with you. And I know that you're someone that I have full faith and trust in, who I know would be there for me if I ever really needed it, as I would be there for you. And just on, the days where it gets hard and it gets tough, just know that there are a lot of people in your corner who love you very much and who want nothing but the best for you. And as fun as this game is, there's nothing really better than that. So,
Cool.
Thank you, Gemma. We love you, Gemma. And we're looking forward to seeing the continued journey for Twigg and where the Isles of Iverion campaign will take her.
Straight to hell, literally.
Straight to hell. But hell's a party, so we'll make it fun. Yeah. All right, everyone. There, now we're talking. All right, to those of you who have been sticking around, thank you so much, Gemma. Thank you for taking the time and doing this. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time, and I was not disappointed. As always, just another banger. All right, for those of you who are still here, again, thanks for watching. Tune in tomorrow to see Twigg and the rest of her friends continue their journeys in the Hells and Isles of Iverion. Tune in Tuesday for Salamander Coast, and Wednesday for the Tales of Evrand. And with that, we will see you in the new year. Have a good one, guys. Crazy. Bow now, now. Boo.